In the NBA, the largest thrill often comes from star players battling each other. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were like this in the 1980s. Before them, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain had a huge rivalry in the 1960s. Today, LeBron James and Stephen Curry are the big rivals. LeBron James is known for his strength and all-around skills, while Curry is famous for his incredible shooting. These matches are not just about winning games. They show how basketball can be played in different ways. These rivalries, from Russell and Chamberlain to LeBron and Curry, are more than just player battles. They show how basketball has changed over time and how the competition between players makes the game great. But why did no one ever challenge the GOAT of the NBA, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who could have gone toe-to-toe with the Air Jordan himself? This is the story of the greatest competition to Michael Jordan that never was, a Len Bias story. Despite never playing in the NBA, Bias is a legend among basketball fans. He spent 4 years at Maryland, becoming one of the best college players ever. Twice named ACC Player of the Year and earning many awards, everyone thought Bias would be the next big star before he was even drafted. We briefly witnessed how the matchup between Jordan and Bias could have went. North Carolina Tar Heels Jordan guarded Maryland Terrapins Len Bias, a matchup many thought would extend into the NBA for at least a decade. Bias was one of 10 players to win multiple ACC Player of the Year awards, is the only player to average 25 points and 10 rebounds in the NCAA tournament since seeding began in 1979, according to ESPN, and Bias, not Jordan, was named the 1984 ACC Tournament MVP. But unfortunately, we never saw them facing each other in the NBA. Boston selected Bias with the number 2 pick in the 1986 draft, and not even 2 days later, Bias was dead from cardiac arrhythmia induced by a cocaine overdose, collapsing in a Maryland dorm room while partying with friends. He was 22 years old. Bias had a play style and skill set so unique that it's hard to compare to anybody playing today. A 6'8" forward that could play inside and out with this impeccable combination of athleticism and touch from the mid-range, making him virtually unstoppable. Today's generation would most likely argue that the greatest of all time is between either Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Michael Jordan with a 30.12 point average per game in his career, while LeBron James becoming the all-time scoring leader in points in the National Basketball Association. Len Bias was the LeBron James of his generation. His athletic ability and dedication to the sport made him different from any athlete. He could invent ways to score, and there was nothing you could do about it. No matter how you defended him, he could make a play. His physical qualities and characteristics were built for basketball, similar to Jordan. Len Bias could have changed the opinions of today's generation on who they believe the GOAT is. It's all speculation. However, debates about sports are all speculation. It's difficult to say whether Bias would have been better than Jordan at the NBA level. The fact that Jordan had gone to an all-right team like the Bulls and Bias went to the defending world champs certainly would have affected both their playing time as rookies and their stats. Before we move forward, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. To put it into perspective, Bias was always destined for greatness. He was selected by the Boston Celtics to handle the dynasty reigns after Larry Bird. He was destined for stardom in the NBA and for one of the league's best franchises. A day after the NBA draft, Len Bias signed a $3 million endorsement deal with Reebok. The company was hoping to use Bias's stardom to promote their shoes, just as Michael Jordan had done with Nike 2 years earlier. Fresh off of a signing deal and finalizing a few things with the Celtics front office, Bias made a triumphant return to College Park to celebrate. At some point during the evening, some of Bias's friends dealt out lines of cocaine, and the young basketball star made the decision, perhaps for the first time, to join them. Bias had not been a long-time drug user. He showed no signs of heart complications. In fact, the autopsy revealed that in the hours preceding his death, he had not consumed any alcohol or taken any other drugs. And it's possible that he died the first time he tried cocaine. Bias and Michael Jordan would have played different roles. Bias, a small forward, could have played as a power forward, helping Kevin McHale in the 1987 playoffs and finals when McHale was injured. Jordan, a shooting guard, focused more on controlling the ball, while Bias would have played more off the ball, getting help from setups and screens. Larry Bird would have looked to pass to Bias during fast breaks and in regular play. Jordan had to score a lot for his team, more than Bias would have been expected to. Jordan also often defended the top scorer on the other team, while Bias would have guarded players in his position like James Worthy and Dominique Wilkins. When Jordan joined the Chicago Bulls, the team hadn't won a West Division title yet. In contrast, Boston was one of the most successful teams with the most championships. This meant less pressure for Bias at the start. Him, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale probably would have gone down as the best front line that you could ever have in the history of the game. Having built a rivalry with the consensus GOAT Michael Jordan in the 80s only added fuel to the fire of the debate if Bias could have been the one to top MJ. The two met during elite basketball camps in high school. They met each other for the first time at the 5-star basketball camp. A 17-year-old Michael Jordan wasn't yet the mythical figure we know today. He was a skinny, athletic individual who was still unheard of at that time. But 1 week at the camp was enough for everyone to realize his incredible talent and the fact that he was headed for greatness. Len Bias, a 6'6" high school junior, showed up later. His skill set was relatively raw at the time, but his muscular build, freakish athleticism, and ability to finish strongly at the rim captivated everyone. Bias was one of the best athletes in college who supposedly had the same athletic ability as LeBron James, but in his era. He had the purest jump shot, straight up off the floor, perfect form, perfect elbow, perfect release point, perfect follow-through, and it was a vision. It was a work of art. Len Bias could have revolutionized the league with his style of play. Bias's bodybuilder type was not typically suited for the small forward position. He could have been the first hybrid, meaning that he could play any position on the team. Bias's story represents one of the saddest what-ifs in sports history. What if Bias had not died and instead had a long NBA career? If Bias had played in the NBA, his emergence would have created an issue for the late 1980s Detroit Pistons and Lakers and early 1990s Bulls. It's anyone's guess how the late 1980s Pistons, the early 1990s Bulls, or Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Worthy's Lakers would have done versus Bird and Bias's Celtics. If he got to play in the NBA and show out to the global stage, we probably would have a whole different set of young players coming up and basing their game on Bias. It's a shame that we got stripped away from that. The 90s was a walk in the park for Michael Jordan because he had dismantled every team he played against in the finals because there was no one to stop him. Len Bias could have been Michael Jordan's kryptonite, and evidently the only person to challenge him for the title of GOAT. The greatest of all time conversation could have been different if Len Bias was living today. Check out this video